Welcome to the Rough Characters Podcast. I am your host, Philip Overby.
And I'm John Palladino.
And today we're going to be traveling through the universe with a S of sci fi uh, that we think might be cool, sci fi that maybe we wish could have been cooler, and just sci fi worlds in general, because both of us have a passion for sci-fi, and maybe this podcast tends to lean more in the fantasy direction, so we thought we would do a sci-fi special. The sci-fi special music.
We'll have to remember that for the next sci-fi episode.
Yeah. That's how it goes. All right, so before we get into it, John has some news. Share with us, John, your wonderful news.
It's not so much news as a quick update. We talked in a previous episode about some of our favorite strategy games. I don't know if you remember this, but you brought up Battle Brothers,
Oh yeah.
and I actually just today bought and downloaded and started playing. And at first, I was a little apprehensive when I saw like the I'm not like a graphics hater,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like the style of basically just like the shoulders up uh, has never been something that really appealed to me. But I took your word for it. It's the type of game that I would like. It's like a good old strategy RPG where, brutality ensues. And I haven't played much, but I did start I think it's like a tutorial mission basically.
Yeah.
And got into the first battle, and as soon as someone died and I saw their head go rolling across the screen, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is pretty cool." And I've gotten into it a little bit more, and wow, it's really fun to like name your people and hope that they don't die. I haven't lost anyone yet, but I haven't played that far into it. But I just thought I'd let you know it's a good game, and I appreciate the recommendation.
Oh yeah. I've probably put more hours into that game on the computer and Switch than any other game I have right now. It has a really great replay value because you can do different origin starts or whatever.
I noticed that. I'm actually really excited to like start an official campaign, but I figured I'd kind of go through the tutorial stuff. Now, you mentioned you have it on both PC and Switch.
Yeah,
Okay, so I looked up reviews for this game because I know that sometimes the quality of a game can really differ depending on the system. So I tend to research a game if I don't know anything about it, compare kind of what systems, uh, because sometimes they'll do multiple reviews, one for PC, one for Switch. And through my research, it looked like the Switch version not that well received. So I bought it on computer, but I wanted it on the Switch. Uh, what do you think about that? Is it okay on the Switch?
well, for me, like at first I didn't like the controls on the Switch, but it's like any game on the Switch, you get used to it. Like once you get
Right.
used to it, it's not that bad. um I think for that kind of game, like there's a lot of menus and there's a few like clicking things and all that kind of stuff that can be tedious on the Switch compared to the PC. But to me, it's not like I think it's a pretty good port of a game that I wasn't sure how it would be done on Switch, but I think they did a pretty good job. Uh, and I've played it a lot on Switch, and I haven't really had any
Okay.
issues with it myself. But I think
Right.
the optimal way to play it would probably be PC.
Okay.
And
That's where I've been playing it, and it's great.
but it is a game where your people are going to die, and you just have to kind of accept. Okay, even I like this guy, he's probably going to die. But you can always
Right.
you can always do the save scum thing. I do that all the time. I'm like, well, I really like that guy, so I'm just gonna start over.
I'm uh I'm awful for that kind of thing. When I play a game like Fire Emblem or like this game Battle Brothers or whatever, I'll be playing and then maybe like I'll have two or three like really awesome people that I consider my like core, I guess.
Yeah,
And if one of them dies, it's like, oh God, I don't know if I can. I just gotta restart because like I can't lose that person. Uh, and so yeah, maybe that makes me a trash gamer, and I don't care. But sometimes I don't like yeah, XCOM. That was a really good one for
I,
that because
I
if
was
you don't save scum in that game and you let your people die, oh my God, did that game get ridiculously hard.
yeah, I was just about to bring up XCOM because XCOM is like one of my favorite tactical or strategy RPGs, and it's sci-fi, so it ties
It
into
is
our thing.
sci-fi. I was just gonna say we can move right into sci-fi discussions now. Just start with XCOM, which was not a universe I was even thinking about for this podcast.
Yeah, but it is that is an interesting one because especially the more recent one, um,
Talking about the one that came out on computer.
maybe XCOM 2. Uh,
Oh, okay.
this one, basically, the alien invasion is finished, and like the aliens just took over Earth, basically. Basically, the president is an alien or something. But the storyline isn't like the aliens are invading. We have to stop them from invading. It's like, no, the aliens have taken over Earth, and now we're the resistance against the aliens. So, um, I like that kind of story where it's like the aliens are just there and they're doing nasty shit, but people like a group of people have basically decided, well, aliens aren't so bad. We'll just let them rule us, I guess. And I just think like in the real world, I just wonder like if aliens did come down to Earth and we're like, we're just gonna take you over. I wonder how many countries would just be like, yeah, okay. Sure.
I think that our world is a lot has a lot more like bravado than they actually would. Like you hear a lot of people say like, "Oh, we would never let that happen," but if that actually were to happen, I think so many of us would be so like stunned and afraid too because if they have the capacity to get here, you don't want to mess with them probably.
Well, a lot of like alien invasion type storylines involve the aliens always being hostile or whatever.
Right.
Um, but there was one interesting movie years ago, District 9, which
Oh yeah.
kind of deals with the alien invasion in a different way where the aliens are basically treated like shit or whatever. Like
Yeah. Yep. I remember that
I
movie.
like subversion of the alien stuff and where they don't go with the typical like the aliens came here. What do they want? Why are they here? Oh, they're here to kill us. Blow up the White House with the big UFO. Will Smith punch alien in the face.
Yes, Independence Day. It does seem like overall, and there's of course exceptions, but I feel like overall, uh, there's like two different ways that it usually goes, and one's the alien like attack slash invasion, and then the other one is kind of like the Star Wars, Mass Effect, Star Trek kind of like aliens exist. Yeah, maybe some of them are hostile, some of them are good, but overall, it's kind of like a just a big universe of factions and stuff.
Well, the interesting thing about Star Wars, particularly, is there's all these aliens, but they're just kind of like live together, and there's really no ever any like explanation like how did all these aliens get on this one planet, and they're obviously very different kind of aliens. Um, but I guess it's just like okay, space travel has advanced so much that like aliens from all over the universe can converge and Tatooine and hang out at a bar or whatever. Just like, and play the xylophone and dance around or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of the planet, like if you go into the extended lore stuff, you can find out like each planet basically has like a bunch of different species that are like home to that planet, but that's more involved than I go. Now you already know that Star Wars is like my favorite sci-fi universe, but um one thing I really, and you might feel similarly with your favorite sci-fi universe, which I'm sure we'll get to, like and Star Wars has the most, I think easily the most exposure, right? Like you
Yeah.
have all those movies, the shows, the games, the books, the just constant stream since basically the Phantom Menace came out. On and off, there's been some periods where not much came out, but overall, I think that card games, just constant Star Wars stuff because it's so marketable.
Yeah.
But even with all that content, I cannot help but just feel like there's been this lack of content. And I know that kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but like 90% of everything, maybe even higher than 90%, really deals with the Skywalker saga. So just any of the 9 movies, right? And then that's about it. You have some exceptions. And if you read the books, I'm sure that that expands outside of that a lot. I've never been a big fan of the Star Wars books. I don't really like books on any movies
IP kind of
slash
thing.
yeah any like books based on some franchise. Like it's just not my thing. um and it's cool if people like it. I just always feel like the books don't feel as natural as like if you read a regular novel that was written with the like artist's imagination. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a lot of books that were released years ago that people were pretty hardcore about, and when Disney bought Star Wars, people were like, "Oh, now they can do
Yeah, but
this guy or whatever." And the one author that comes up a lot um, is Timothy Zahn. Like he seems to be, um,
well, I think he created Thrawn, right?
yeah, he's like the Thrawn guy, and everybody's like, "Oh, they got to do a Thrawn movie," and because that character's beloved in the novels,
Okay, so
novel verse anyway.
this is a funny story. Ever since I was a kid, Thrawn has been around. A- and like I never knew much about him as a kid. I knew he was like an officer in the Empire, basically. I think he had an appearance in a game called Star Wars Rebellion, which I was a big fan of. Uh, and I he's in he's in the live action or not live action, the animated Star Wars Rebel show, which I'm struggling through right now. I've never seen that show before. I'm forcing myself through it because I feel like a lot of that stuff's going to become relevant for some of the upcoming shows. I don't recommend you watch it. It's really boring.
Uh,
But and it's for kids, so it's like a double whammy there. Um, but Thrawn has just always been so cool. And speaking of Thrawn, spoiler alert to anybody who uh, cares about casting for future shows. I did just read that they casted Mads Mikkelsen to play Thrawn for, I think it's the Ahsoka show. So live action Thrawn. These are rumors, by the way. There's nothing confirmed. But at least I don't think it's confirmed. It might be confirmed. I didn't look too much into it because I'm not trying to get like massive spoilers or anything. But yeah, I do believe we might be getting a live action Thrawn, and that's really cool. For like, I always had this huge thing for Thrawn. I don't know why, because I never got into Thrawn. I never read the Thrawn books. I don't think I might have read one. Um, so, but I don't know. He just always intrigued me.
Every time I hear the word Thrawn, I think of prawn, like shrimp. I don't know why.
What is the, was that District 9 where they called the aliens prawns?
Yeah, that is true. Uh, so another, big universe that I think both of us have kind of talked about, uh, is Star Trek, and how I think Star Trek I probably liked the most was probably Deep Space Nine, and I think some people really like that one. For whatever reason, I just felt Star Trek was just too clean or something. Maybe it's the grim dark side of me, but Star Trek just, even like people died all the time. They would just get hit by a laser and just fall over. It's like they never. I don't know. Maybe I'm not watching the right Star Wars or Star Trek. Maybe somebody that's like a big Star Trek person can point me in the right direction, but I just never found a Star Trek show that like really appealed to like the type of sci-fi that I would like. Um, is it
Yeah.
interesting because I actually had a Klingon game when I was a kid, and it
Oh,
and they had a Klingon language lab with it where you could learn Klingon. And it was one of those like games where it was like realistic, it was like real actors, and you would choose like something, and then like if you chose the wrong thing, Cleon would like kill you or whatever. And that's probably the closest I got to like really liking Star Trek. I was like, I could be a Klingon. That's cool.
yeah. I'm not a Star Trek fan, like at all. When I was a kid, I watched some of the movies. Uh, I watched some of, I don't know if it's the original show or the show after the original show. I can't remember. Anyway, the stuff that I watched with Star Trek had both the two famous captains, Picard and why can't I think of the other guy? William Shatner. Um,
Captain Kirk.
yes. So those are the two that I saw. I saw a bunch of the Captain Kirk show, some of the movies that had him in it, and then I saw a couple of the Picard movies. I think the movie that I remember actually not hating was the Picard movie with the Borg. Now I don't remember anything about it, so maybe upon watching it now, I would absolutely hate it. Uh, it's been so long since I've seen it. But my biggest problem with Star Trek is like I love the premise of like going around and exploring and encountering all this stuff, but the execution, I don't know if it was because a lot of it was like an anthology show, I think, if I'm remembering right. A lot of the older shows at least were, at least they felt like an anthology. I can't remember. So there
Mm,
wasn't like a storyline that really like carried over. Um, and I think that was my biggest problem. And then just the execution. I don't know. The way Star Trek worked, it just was so like cheesy. I can't think of a way to say that without like, I'm not trying to upset anyone. It's just not my thing.
yeah, I think it's a hard thing to sell to people if they're not into that kind of thing. So you just have to kind of be into it, because people could be like, "Oh man, you just don't get it" or whatever, and it's like,
I admit I don't get
yeah, I guess I don't
it.
get it. I don't know.
I'm much more into like Star Wars, or uh Mass Effect, or I don't know. Um I had another franchise that I was gonna say, but I don't remember what it is.
So Dune is my favorite universe, and it involves all sorts of different things that are not easy to explain just right offhand. So uh, there's spice, and there's sandworms, and there's space witches, and all sorts of crazy shit in the universe. But because it doesn't really have aliens and stuff like that, it doesn't tend to fit into like a typical sci-fi. Uh, I mean, I guess everybody is an alien in a way. They act alien. That's the thing that's interesting about the Dune universe is people that are from different planets. They act very different than people, even they're all humans. And so that's one of the interesting things about it is that people basically all the technology in the universe has been banned, and like humans have been used to replace technology. So like you have these people called mentats that are like human computers, and it's all about conditioning and training your mind and all this kind of stuff, and it's like
Right.
really interesting like how far the humans will go to uh venture into the stars, and like the spice is basically uh you know god gives you god powers and shit like that. It's like it's pretty crazy. um but yeah, it's my favorite universe just because it's so unique compared to a lot of other sci-fi universes that have laser guns, and I mean I like that kind of stuff, but Dune just kind of
Right.
stands out to me. Even it was made you know 60, 70 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah, you know that my experience with Dune is very limited. And like I haven't read any of the books. I always want to, but then I'm just like 100% certain that the writing style won't work for me. So I don't. But I see, and we've played the Dune RPG, the tabletop RPG, and
Yeah,
that was really cool from the small amount that we've played it so far. But and I haven't seen the movies, or I think was there a show? I think they're making a show.
there was a show on sci-fi years ago that was like the whole it was kind of like I never watched that. I was always kind of like a hardcore David Lynch Dune uh person, and the original Dune gets a lot of criticism for being like super over the top, and like the Baron is floating around and like he's ha 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 ha, I'm the Baron, I'm so evil, and people are just
Oh,
like come on. um but it gets a lot of criticism, but it's kind of like a cult classic in a way. Like it has its fan base. I've always loved the original Dune movie, and then they did the sci-fi series, and I was kind of like, I don't know. And then, but then when I saw Denis Villeneuve was doing the new Dune movie, I said, oh, that's the perfect guy to do this because he did Arrival, and he did Blade Runner sequel, and like even if you don't like those movies, like visually they're amazing. And if anybody could like pull out the Dune vision in a cool way, I thought he would be able to do it. I was right. I watched it. I was like, geez, he really nailed it. So I'm excited about the next one for sure.
that movie was made by HBO, right?
It's made by Warner Brothers, I think. So that's why it was on HBO Max. Um,
Okay, because
Le- Legendary Pictures, I think, made it, and I think they're connected to Warner Brothers somehow.
okay, because HBO is making a TV show for Dune as well, I do believe.
Is it Warner Brothers? Hold on. Let me correct myself. Discovery and Warner Brothers recently merged, didn't they?
Uh, Discovery just merged with somebody. I have a hard time remembering all these mergers and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Warner Brothers, and it's called Warner Brothers Discovery now. So they own HBO and they own
Okay.
stuff like that. So the big thing with Dune when they released it that people were like, was it was during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic. So they released it on HBO Max
Yes, I remember that.
first, I think, and people were like, "Ugh, I want to watch in the theater," and then they released it in the theater and it did really well in the theater. So they were like, "Oh, nice." So um it's the first movie I saw in the theater, like when the pandemic finally settled down.
Yeah.
So I was like hyped as F. I was hyped as F.
I haven't seen the movie. Um, I believe the second movie comes out next year.
Yeah.
I might watch.
Well, I think anytime I see something these days, I always think John wouldn't like this. And it's and it's now like a what do you call it? Like a division. Like John would probably like this versus John would probably not like this. And like I can immediately look at something or read something and like, okay, John wouldn't like that. And I can almost hit it on the head at this point. I think what I notice is you tend to like stuff that's concrete in a way. Like you understand the way everything works and the storyline is straightforward. It's not meandering all over the place. You can kind of get what's happening at all times. Whereas some like more literary style fantasy or sci-fi, you don't always understand what's going on all the time, and you kind of have to like just immerse yourself in it. So
Yeah, anything that feels like I'm doing homework for an English professor, no offense, Phil, is not generally something I enjoy.
I think that's kind of a distinction between the two of us that can be made sometimes. Like, uh, I'll go more in the experimental route as far as stuff goes, like sci-fi or anything like Disco Elysium, for example. That game,
Oh my God. Did you like that game?
I think it's a really cool like universe and like uh
I fucking hated that game.
see that's a perfect example. It's a
Now,
perfect
admittedly,
example.
I did not get far into it. I barely made it out of the first building. Uh, I just hated it. I hated it so much. It was the most regretted purchase I've made in a really long time for video games. I Oh man, all the reviews for it. I was so pumped. I was like, this is gonna be exactly the type of game that I like.
No,
And
I
I
could have told you
oh
that I wasn't.
fuck. Well,
If
to
you
be
would have
fair,
asked me, I would have been like, no, you shouldn't buy this, John.
I got it before I even knew you.
Oh, that's true.
Um, but yeah, I fucking hate it. It's
Okay.
like your brain's talking to you in different like no, just no.
See, it's one of those. To me, it's one of those games that just feels like I just like weird shit, and like if it's weird and I can adjust to the weirdness, I love stuff like that. That's just like really bizarre or weird, and then like over time, and I think that's what appeals to people. That's why I got so many good reviews. Is that it embraces its weirdness and like and it understands it's going to alienate a lot of people. So that's the kind of stuff I like in sci-fi or fantasy, even. That takes a slight risk to alienate like a large percentage of people. Um, and like I think every writer should do that. I think every writer should think when they write, there's going to be a large percentage of people that hate my book. But I'm going to do the book the way I want to do it. And I think some of the most successful or critically acclaimed writers are those type of people. Like I know we've talked about various properties over time or books or whatever, and to me the people that always take risks are the ones that I remember the most, and the people that are good, like I say, oh, that was good, but then they don't stick with me. So I guess that's kind of the difference, where like a Disco Elysium type thing kind of sticks with me, whereas a typical sci-fi game where you're just shooting a gun at people doesn't stick with me as much. It might be a better game mechanically or whatever, but just the experience is different, if that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm trying to understand. I get what you mean by taking risks, but uh I wouldn't say that Mass Effect maybe takes risks from like a story or mechanic perspective. I think they took a risk because they made such a massive game at a time when a lot of people, I think, didn't believe it would work well. Um, so I'm not sure if how you would feel about Mass Effect in terms of like
I
it
don't.
being memorable or
Well, I think it's memorable, but a lot of things about Mass Effect are memorable because it's all people are always going to remember the last thing you give them. And even Mass Effect 1 was brilliant. Mass Effect 2, I loved. Some people didn't love that one as much. Uh, Mass Effect 3 was was memed all over the internet because of how
unfairly so, in my opinion. I think
well,
the ending was hot trash, but the rest of the game was fucking brilliant.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. The game was great, but
Yeah.
that's all anybody remembers from Mass Effect 3, right? Like I don't remember
Oh, I
shit.
know.
I don't remember shit from Mass Effect 3. I remember the ending.
That's funny. I remember some things from that, but man, that was a long time ago. And then there's Mass Effect Andromeda, which a
Yeah.
lot of people won't even talk about. Now, I personally thought the game was awesome, aside from a few critiques, like the face animation for was just awful. And there was a few glitches. I got the crab walking glitch on a couple characters, and but otherwise, man, that game had some beautiful environments, and it was intriguing for the most part with the storyline. I wasn't a big fan of a lot of the party characters, but uh, I think that Mass Effect is probably my favorite sci-fi video game,
Yeah.
maybe. I mean, Fallout. I'm a big fan of Fallout. Trying to think of other sci-fi. A lot of people would say Halo, but that was never my thing.
Well, I was always more into like, you know, sci-fi RPG stuff. I was never really into the
Yes,
first
yeah, me
person
too.
shooters.
Are you excited for Starfield?
Yeah. Well,
So,
the problem with that to me is uh it looks really cool, but I just don't know if it's worth me buying a next gen console yet. Because I'm always a generation behind. Like I keep my PS4 until it blows up, basically, and then once the PS5 or whatever is cheaper,
I
I'll get
I
the.
think it's coming out on the older consoles, isn't it? Maybe not.
I was under the impression that Starfield was a Xbox exclusive, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it does look like that.
Because
Oh,
but
right, because you don't have an Xbox, do you?
yeah, Bethesda owns or Xbox fucked everybody and bought Bethesda, so now we can't get anything cool now. That this is the problem with the with Xbox and PlayStation is they're going to start doing shit like that. They're going to start buying up.
They already have.
Yeah, They're
Um,
gonna start doing it more to the point it's gonna be like a Nintendo thing where like Nintendo's like, we have our properties, ain't nobody getting shit. Ain't no, Mario
uh,
Mario ain't appearing in nothing.
yeah, Nintendo. My thoughts on Nintendo would anger a lot of people probably listening to this, so I'll be quiet. But I don't like the way that they do things.
They do a lot of stuff I don't like also. I mean, like all the companies do stuff I don't like, but I tend to have brand loyalty to Sony the most just because they've been consistent uh
Yeah,
for the most
Sony
part.
lost me, but I was a big Sony fan during PlayStation 1 and 2 days, and I got a PlayStation 3, and man, I spent $600 on that when I was in high school, and boy, oh boy, it was just not a great system. And then, and that the Xbox 360 came out at the same time, and that stole my loyalty. And then the next generation, PlayStation 4, in my opinion, just was not appealing at all. I had one. I've had each system, so for Xbox and PlayStation. Except I don't own a PlayStation 5 because they're still not fucking in stock anywhere. Um,
Well, yeah.
but
That's another issue. It's just
yeah, and I haven't had like a huge desire to get a PlayStation 5 because there hasn't been any exclusives yet that I care about. Um,
yeah,
of course,
that's the same way
KOTOR was one, and they canceled that. So
that's the same way I am about um Xbox, I guess, is if Starfield is exclusive to Xbox, it might interest me more, but um I don't know about the next Final Fantasy because I pretty much go wherever Final Fantasy goes.
Final Fantasy has been such a shit series for the
Final
longest time.
Fantasy is now sci-fi.
It
Final
is.
sci-fi,
Yeah, I
which
hate it.
which
I've
ties in
hated it.
which ties
Uh,
into our thing. But the most recent one looks heavily influenced by fantasy, so it looks like
well,
it's moving away from the sci-fi stuff at
are
least.
you
Just
sure? I thought the newest one had guns in it. What is it?
Final
Final
Fantasy,
Fantasy 16?
yeah, Final Fantasy 16 looks like a medieval game or something. I
I
didn't.
don't know, Phil. I stopped caring after Final Fantasy 12. Just
Well,
everything has
yeah.
been. I mean, I played 13 and I fucking hated it. Uh, and
Did you fucking hate it as much as Disco Elysium?
no, because I actually played a decent amount of it, I guess. That's not. I don't know, Phil. I really hated both of those games. Disco Elysium, I hated because I didn't get it. It was not something I understood. As we know, if I don't understand it, I hate it. Um,
Yeah.
and then Final Fantasy 13 was just such a slog. The storyline was stupid. I lost interest in that game when a character put a gun to their head, pulled the trigger, it went off, and somehow they did not die. It and when that happened, like they didn't even shot. I don't remember exactly how it happened. Some stupid magic or something. It didn't make sense, Phil. And when that happened, I said, "Fuck this guy." I actually rage turned off my console when that happened. What would that have been? PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4? I don't remember.
You had to get up and push the button.
Yeah. So I
Fuck this
stood up.
game.
Yeah,
Push the button.
I think I walked up and hit the eject button mid cinematic, took the disc, put it in the case, and I never touched it again. I was so pissed. I was like, how stupid is this? But
Well,
actually,
the thing with like sci-fi in general is um and the reason I think the Final Fantasy games have been criticized is that stuff Final Fantasy blends that kind of like unbelievability with sci-fi stuff. So you have, for example, stuff happening that could be explained away by either technology or magic. So it's like, well, the
Yeah,
technology allows it to do that, or it's like, oh, the magic allows it to do that. So
and
that
that's
kind of,
fine.
yeah.
But I think drifted so far away from where like we used to be with that. I mean, they had science and magic in like way back in like 6 and 7, and those games were great. Um, and 9 and 8. I mean, they all had it, right? And it was good. The stories were interesting. They still had a lot of that stupid mythological science malarkey that didn't make sense if you just ignored the story in that sense. The rest of it was really good. There was really good character development and stories happening and things you cared about. But then you get into some of the later series titles, and it's like they focus so much on the stupid, just garbled nonsense that no one understands. I mean, Jesus, did you play Final Fantasy 13? Did you play what was that other one? There was another one. It was just hot just hot garbage. Like, oh, it's awful. And it makes me so sad. And Final Fantasy 12, I really liked the setting and a lot of the characters, but man, I really hated the gameplay in that game. And I think that's really when I fell off the train. Was Final Fantasy 12, and I hated Final Fantasy 10 as well. So really, you could go farther back to Final Fantasy 10, but at least 10 kept like the gameplay elements and like the stuff that you expected from a Final Fantasy game back then. 12 was just nonsense how they changed everything. They were trying to make it like an MMO almost, and I hated that. And I still hate how all the gameplay is now.
Well, it's another. It kind of goes back to what I said about taking risks. Like sometimes I think Final Fantasy has always tried to take risks, and recently they're not paying. Some of the risks are not paying off the way they want, I think.
I don't know about that. I mean, I don't think that it's working for some of us, but like a lot of their games are still seeing wild success.
Yeah, I think it really depends on like certain, because I think people are just loyal to Final Fantasy. Like, doesn't matter
Yeah.
what it is. It's Final Fantasy. Like, I'm gonna die hard loyalty. I mean, like, I tried to defend 13 when it came out. I was like, well, yeah, this is not that bad. And then
So did
like
I.
same thing I did with Phantom Menace. Oh, it wasn't that bad.
I'm actually a Phantom Menace defender, as you know. I'm a big defender of the prequels in general, but I get why people might not be. I still to this day say that the prequels are better than the original trilogy, and I know that's a very controversial take. I don't care. The original trilogy was fine, but storyline wise, character wise, nowhere near as good as the prequels. I know, hot take. Cancel me.
Yeah, I think we just need to stop now because I can't really say anything.
Why? Oh, because you hate the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, I can't really.
That's fine. You did hate it all you want. I loved it. Episode 3, one of my favorite movies of all time. Yep, I said it. A lot of people are like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Godfather, stuff like that. No, episode 3, Star Wars.
Yep, Revenge of the Sith is actually a movie that I rate in my top
Shawshank,
5.
Shawshank Redemption.
Never saw
No,
that, but
episode 3,
I
Star
did
Wars.
see The Godfather, and I did really like The Godfather.
Oh, okay.
Same with 2 and 3, but I'd rate Star Wars Episode 3 is way better than those. I know, I know. Hot takes.
Hot take.
I can almost hear you falling apart over there.
No, to me, it's like I don't get I don't get that upset about the Star Wars stuff because I like it, but it's not like something I'm like hardcore super whatever. So like
Yeah,
if people criticize it or say they like this or that, I'm not like, what?
that's
But
how I am when people say they like the sequel trilogy.
but but saying the prequels are better than the original trilogy is just bizarre to me, but
It
uh,
is not
it's not a popular opinion, I don't think.
it isn't. Well, I think that it's become more accepted by a lot of people. I personally think it's crazy that people think the original trilogy is better, but like I get the criticisms, like midi chlorians, and there's some stuff that like I get it, but man, that all the build up that those first two episodes have into episode three, oh man. Funny story about episode three. I saw it in theaters. That first half an hour when I was a kid, I'm telling you, when did episode three come out? Revenge. Let's look this up because I want to get the age right. So Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005. I graduated high school in 2007. So I would have been in 10th grade. Uh, and I saw that in theaters with my brother. It was just the two of us because my dad actually that was May of 2005, so I would have been nearing the end of ninth grade, it looks like. So
Well, that makes sense then, because like everyone's stupid in ninth grade, so it makes total sense.
well, this is just funny because we sat down and the movie came on and I could not have been more excited for it. And I don't know if you remember much of episode three, but the first half an hour
No,
is
no, I don't.
the first half an hour is the space battle. Anakin and Obi-Wan are shooting things in space. They land on the ship. Their objective is to rescue Palpatine, who is captured by Count Dooku, and they end up killing Count Dooku, or Anakin does, and then they get out of that ship. Uh, that whole sequence, I was so like, oh my God, this is so stupid. Just in the theater, I almost got up and walked out because I thought, wow, this is so dumb. Just the way everything worked. It was like a battle with no music, the stupidity of a lot of it. And as soon as Dooku's head goes flying, I was like, oh, wow, okay, now we're into this. And then it seemed to have caught its vibe. But man, that last like hour of that movie, and I know this is hot take, very hot take. I can just put that hour on like on my phone or something or in the background, and I'm just like blown away every time I see so much of that. I still get chills, Phil, when I watch the battle between Yoda and Palpatine when they're rising up in the Senate fighting each other because of the amount of meaning behind that. It's like good versus evil, Jedi versus Sith, the democracy versus the Galactic Republic or whatever. I could go on and on about this. And it
Well,
just blows me away that people don't see what I see in it.
well, we've come to a conclusion this episode that anytime someone's head goes flying off, you immediately get hooked on something. Battle Brothers, somebody's head went flying off, and Star Wars Episode 3, someone's head went flying off. So
Yeah, now your
if you
head is,
want if you want John to like
or no, my
something,
head,
if you want John to like something, make their head fly off.
which is what's about to happen with
Yeah, that's a good segue into
my
our
character.
rough character arena. It's time for a battle. Let's see if this deadly chimera can tear off John's head, and then maybe he'll like chimeras more after that. How would you pronounce that? Chimera or chimera? I've heard both.
I always say Chimera, but you know, what do I know? I'm not an English professor.
Chimera is probably the correct pronunciation, actually.
That's
So you are
probably
correct.
true. Well, you know, I don't
But
like to say I'm always right, but
well, you said you hate Disco Elysium and that you love episode 3, so we'll just leave it at that. People can draw their own conclusions from there.
that's right. Everyone contact Phil and tell him that I'm right.
Yeah. If anybody what listens to this and agrees with John, please tell me because I
You'll
want
get
to.
one person and I'll get like 40 that are like, you're trash. But you know what? I will live in my trashy blissfulness and be happy.
Speaking of trashy blissfulness, this Chimera is ultra trashy.
I don't think so. I just rolled a 7 for my initiative.
Well, it rolled an 11, so he
All
goes
right.
first. All right, Chimera versus weak ass Paladin. Who shall win?
I'm gonna place my vote on the Chimera.
Me too. But let's see how long you can last. Wow, they got a shitload of hit points.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna kill you in one hit here because he has 3 attacks. One with a bite, one with a horns, and one with a claws. So he gets 3 fucking attacks.
Oh fuck, I forgot about that. Um, yeah, probably. My armor is 16.
Oh, I can do a breath weapon too. Let's just straight up do the dragon flame right off the bat.
All right. I have to make what, a reflex save?
You have to do DC 15 dexterity. Your
I got,
dexterity.
yeah, my dexterity is awful here. Oh my god. Did I just pass it? I got 15.
Yeah, I guess you did.
Wow. I cannot believe that I did that.
Well,
Doesn't matter. I still take half damage, right?
you're gonna take 7d8 damage and take half of that.
This is gonna kill me right off the bat, I bet.
Nice. And this flame is gonna hit you so hard it's gonna knock your head off. You're gonna be so happy.
Let's see how much damage it does here.
Is it 78 straight up? All right, you'll take half of whatever this is. Boom. Ouch.
29. Oh, I actually survived that. I can't remember. D&D is rounded down, right? I think
Yeah.
so.
So
I took 14 damage. I got 3 health left.
all right. Well, I can use the breath weapon in place of the bite or horns. So I'll use that instead of the horns.
All right.
So let's make a claw attack. 2d6 plus 4. All right. First I got to roll, I guess. Yep,
Yeah.
plus 7 to hit. Nice.
What's the challenge rating on a Chimera?
6.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, man,
Ouch.
ah, shit, I'm dead.
All right.
All right.
Claw to the head hits you so hard, knocks your fucking head off.
All right, so I survived for 1 round. All right. Oh my god, I hate you.
Are we gonna get sued for me doing that?
Maybe. So I get just a regular great reward. Challenge rating 6. All right, let's see what I got here. A boiled egg.
How appropriate.
I already have a salted fish, so I feel like this is appropriate.
You can you can make you're on your way to making a stew or something.
Yeah, I'll cook a full course meal for BB over and myself.
All right. Well, that concludes another riveting death in the arena. And it concludes another episode. Wow, my character just got really huge. Um, so we had lots of hot takes this episode. Feel free to let John know he's full of shit.
That's fair. I'm used to people not liking my opinions on basically everything.
But if you do agree with John, then feel free to share also, because we're always open to conversation, and we're just joshing with each other. Nobody gets their feelings hurt here on the Rough Characters show. We are rough characters after all.
This is
So,
true.
uh, until next time, anything, John, you want to talk about sharing your Twitter? Twitter's
You can
popular
follow
for you.
me. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at a grim bastard.
You are a grim bastard, that's for sure. And the Trials of Ashmount are still out there. You can pick that book up with John's
Yeah,
name on it.
about to hit 1,000 copies out there.
Nice. And if you want to follow our stomping grounds on Facebook, Grimdark Fiction Readers and Writers, you can come there. And also other stuff is featured on negative-hp.com, where you can find our episodes, and you can also find links to other rad stuff. Until next time, go play Disco Elysium. It's awesome.
It's not.
Yay!